Today we are looking at footage from the Red Komodo and Helios 44-2. I actually asked everybody in the community which camera you wanted to see footage from with the Helios, and I got an overwhelming response for the Red Komodo. So today we're going to look at some run and gun footage from the Red Komodo, Helios 44-2. Some of it's handheld, but a lot of it is also from the Zhiyun Crane 2S behind me, and the Tilta Nucleus Nano, which is part of the reason why I did that whole 3D printed conversion to the Helios 44-2. And if you like what you see in today's video, please make sure to hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell to keep up to date with the latest videos from the channel. Without further ado, let's take a look at that footage. Taking this little trip over to the wakeboard park, we got to test a few different things with the Helios and the Komodo. First, we got to test the 4K sensor crop for a little bit of slow motion. Then we got to test the actual 3D print of the Helios 442 itself and see if it actually works well with the Tilta Nucleus Nano, which you could see in the footage. It actually worked really well. And then the other thing we got to test was actually doing that entire combination on the Zhiyun Crane 2S. It was interesting to try and pull all of that off in a really quick 2-hour shoot, but again, this was all experimentation. This was all natural lighting. We were kind of just playing around, seeing what we could get. That way we could have a better idea of how this lens performs in the field. Now, there were a few handicaps I had. Number one, my version of the Helios 442, the aperture ring is super loose, so luckily the Helios 442 lets you lock the aperture down to the lowest aperture. So I was able to lock it down to f2 and it just won't move from f2. But the bad news to that is apparently you don't get the most optimal image quality at f2. However, with my 3D printed mod, as you're focusing, because the aperture ring is so loose, it will move while you're doing focus racking. So unfortunately, I had to lock that. So let's talk about sensor crops in the Red Komodo. For this shoot, we only shot at 6K 40 frames and 4K 60 frames. Everything was 4K 60 when it came to the actual wakeboard action sports shots, and then everything else was in 6K 40 frames per second. The 4K 60, I was surprised, looked really well, and that's almost like a 2 times crop of full frame, very close to micro four thirds as far as sensor area, so it was interesting to see it held up really well. I did want to test out 2K, but I didn't get to this week, so hopefully in the next few weeks coming up, I'll be able to get to that. The next was testing the Nucleus Nano. Now, normally, if I'm using the Nucleus Nano, I'm actually having the core SWX V-mount battery plate on the back of the Komodo, and that way I'm able to power the Nucleus Nano. In this situation, I'm using BP955 batteries, so what I'm actually using to power the Nucleus Nano is the Zhiyun Crane 2S itself. It comes with a USB-C to micro USB cord, and it's just long enough to reach where I need it to on the Nucleus N motor. It seems to be giving the Nucleus N motor enough power, and then I actually put the hand wheel on my SMALLRIG third-party accessory that kind of gives me that extra point of stability on the back of the Zhiyun Crane 2S. I really like it, And on top of it adding stability, it gives you extra mounting points, which lets me basically keep the hand wheel on that little area. Now, there are not that many places you can put the hand wheel on that little SMALLRIG piece that don't get in the way of the motor itself. So luckily, where I have it is just out of the way of the motor, and it's literally as far back as you can put it. And then lastly, when it comes to using the Helios on the Crane 2S, I was a little worried because I thought 58mm was a little bit too telephoto to be doing gimbal shots, but on the 6K mode of Komodo, doing gimbal shots really isn't that difficult, especially having the ability to rack focus via the Nucleus N motor very much helps and makes it a usable lens with this camera on the Zhiyun Crane 2S, just because I have access to, rack my focus if I need to. If I didn't have access to rack focus, the Helios would absolutely not be usable on the Crane 2S. The last thing that I guess I should mention is I also am still using the Canon VND adapter. For this video, I did not use an IR cut filter, and I could already see that there was a little bit of IR pollution in a lot of the different shots, but it wasn't horrible, especially because the Helios has a green tint to it as it is. However, I think if I used the IR cut filter, it definitely would have eliminated a lot of that. So in the next video that I test the Komodo with the Helios 442, I'll make sure to add that IR cut filter and see where the image quality rests when using that combination. I just want to thank Diego for coming out again and wakeboarding for us, letting us have some pretty cool action to test out the slow-mo on the Helios. And you may recognize him, he was in last week's video. If you have any questions about this combination or about what we filmed today, please feel free to put them in the comments below. And if you got knowledge out of today's video, please make sure to hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell to keep up to date with the latest videos on the channel. My name's Geoff Fagien. Thank you for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it, and I will catch you in the next video.